Welcome to Elevate with Paul, where we have elevated discussions about dating, sex, relationships, and mindset related issues. And today we're going to talk about a tweet that we could say broke the internet and really upset a lot of women out there, especially women over the age of 35. We're going to talk about what this all means for your prospects in the dating market today. So let's get into it. Okay, the tweet that broke the internet. Now, before I get started, I'll get into a little bit of ground rules that I need to say for those who are not familiar with the show. We have elevated discussions here. So, what that means is we're not here to dunk or slam on individuals or make these hit pieces out for other people. All right. So, if you have opinions of anybody I mentioned here in the comment section, like Valerie's opinion right now of Pearl, Valerie, you're awesome. I love you. Okay, platonically, but really, this isn't the show for that. Okay, so if you want, keep that to your Twitter account. All right, I'm not interested in your opinions about individuals. What we're going to talk about is issues, though. Okay, issues, and that's what we're going to talk about. So that's number one. Number two is I'm not here to dunk on older women. Like a lot of people think because I speak about the truth about things, the truth about the dating market, that I'm making these statements about women who are just, who are over the age of 35 or whatever, right? Or just or older, right? And I'm not. Okay. So I'm going to be the first to say that there's a lot of very attractive women over the age of 30, over the age of 35, over the age of 45, 50, whatever you are. There's a lot of very attractive women that are good relationship material. All right. For those that are single out there and who are seeking girls in the dating market, right. And who are of that age where that sort of thing matters. You know what I mean? Case in point, I'll talk about my mom for a second. All right. My mom is, in her almost mid 70s. Okay. And she has a boyfriend now just because Aaron Cleary would not hook up with my mom like I've asked him to, because Aaron does not want to be my daddy. Okay. Unfortunately, Aaron Cleary doesn't want to be dad, so he wouldn't hook up with my mom. So my mom was forced to get a boyfriend, and she has a boyfriend. That guy is in his late 60s, 70s, right? So he's a little bit younger. Their concerns, right, about all this stuff are pretty much nothing. You know what I mean? And they understand, both of them understand age related decline. They're both in their retirement years. Like they don't give a shit about this stuff, right? And so there's somebody for anybody at any age. And what's important is that you're out there to be happy. Okay. So this isn't a discussion to try to doom women over a certain age that they're never going to be happy. All right. That's ridiculous. As you age, your goals in the dating and mating market change, and you all have the possibility of being happy in your relationships, regardless of what age you're in and regardless of what age you're dating in. All right. So there could be a guy who's in his late 30s, mid 40s, dating 20-year-olds. I know because I'm one of them. Totally fine. Right. There could be, guys who are in their 40s dating a woman who's a little bit older. And if he's happy with her, good for him. All right. So this is not like dunk on, slam on people for their choices. Okay. I'm here to help you be happy in your relationships and in the dating market. And so getting to the tweet, what was the tweet? Right. And we're going to get into all that in a second. But here's the thing though. There's certain things though that will hinder your happiness. Like you will not be able to have the types of relationships you desire when certain things are there. All right. Lying to yourself and not facing reality, that's one of those things. So cognitive dissonance, that is, one of the worst things that people bring to the dating market. It's this ego protection and this then inflated sense of arrogance that people have due to narratives that are out there in the sexual marketplace, and this need to protect one's ego that hinders your ability to connect with people and have good relationships. It gives you, both men and women, a skewed sense of what your standards should be and what's really important. And women, unfortunately, have been lied to for decades, and they have these narratives in their head that destroy their abilities to be happy later on. So that's one thing: cognitive dissonance, not facing reality. Okay. So, and then the second thing is a lack of accountability. If you lack accountability, you will not have happiness in the dating market, period. If you can't look at yourself and look yourself in the mirror, take a good hard look at yourself, realize what you have and what you don't have, right? And then focus on what you can make better and change and all that to get what you want. If you can't do, that's what accountability is, right? It's seeing things for how they are and then taking charge of it, taking the reins, taking control. Okay. If you're a little bit less attractive of a person, you can do the things that you need to do to make yourself a little bit more attractive. And those things are both physical things as well as mental things and communication skills and emotional skills. That's, I believe it or not, emotions are a skill. How you control, how you handle them, how you direct them. You see what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things you can do in order to bring up your value to a potential partner in the dating market. And if you don't see yourself for what it is and who you are, and you're just ego protecting, that's not accountability. That is simply looking to protect your own ego and play pretend, right? And what you end up doing is you end up not taking responsibility for the parts of yourself that you need to change and improve so that you can be a good person for yourself and a good partner to other people. Ultimately, you get what you put out. And so as a man, if you are not making yourself a better man, which includes what would be the qualities that would make you a better partner for a woman, you're not going to have the types of women you'll want. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be limited in your choices. Well, with women, it's the same thing. And so there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that happens with women due to narratives that they've been told and sold and all of this. And so then we have Pearl, okay, which, she's the master of controversy and being able to say things that blows the internet up. Like, she just knows how to do it. She's very good at that, and that's not a criticism. That's my hat's off, right? So she knows how to say something. That's why she was just on Pierce Morgan, right? That's why she has 1.5 million subscribers on her YouTube channel. She knows how to say things that create these discussions and also ignite emotion and piss people off. It's a talent she has. And so I'm a little disorganized. It's all on Twitter, so you'll have to bear with me, right? And of course, if you guys got questions, throw a super chat in there. It helps the algorithms. So what was the tweet? Tweet was super simple. 35-year-old women are uglier than 25-year-old women. That's all she said. All right. And so, I mean, okay, some have argued it's a little mean, some a lot of different responses to this tweet of, and I think that's the original tweet. There's a lot of tweets going around now about this. Like I said, it kind of blew the internet up. But basically, that's the gist of it. 35-year-old women are uglier than 25-year-old women. And women lost their shit. Like, they lost their minds, right? And so, like, and then now you could have looked at this and said, well, that's kind of mean, and who gives a shit? That could have been an appropriate response. Hey, that's okay. Well, so, the response could have been, so what, right? Because, women, in theory, if they've been working on themselves, not just working on dicks, right? Not just working on experiences, okay, but working on actual self-improvement from their 20s into their 30s, a 35-year-old woman should be bringing other qualities to the table that makes her a better partner than, let's say, a girl in her early 20s. All right. So to offset age-related decline, she can work on herself and her appearance and make sure she stays as, pretty as she can. Right. Which is everyone's responsibility. You men too. Same thing. Right. As you age, you got to take care of yourself. Right. It's not rocket science, but then you bring other qualities to the table. so that you are a good relationship partner. Nope. That's not what we're going to do. Instead, we're going to show pictures of ourselves on the internet. This is me at 25 and this is me at 35. And then, of course, the 35-year-old picture has Botox, lip filler, and face filters and every makeup and every trick in the book to try to make this 35-year-old or plus 35-year-old woman look better than she did in her 20s, showing up with a photo of maybe some natural beauty and a lot and no filters, right? Like, it's like the amount of coping, dude, and ego protection is insane. Is insane. And women are just, no, it's not true. Get over yourself. You know what I mean? Guess what, ladies? I am not going to be a professional boxer as much as I like boxing. Okay. Why? Because I didn't go in that direction when I was in my prime. I boxed, I've done martial arts. I love it. It's great. All that stuff. I like to train now. I'm not going to be a pro. Why? Because I'm in my 40s. Okay. I can still fight. I can still do stuff. I mean, it came down to protecting my family. It ain't down to boxing skills, thankfully. You know what I mean? I have other special sets of skills that'll get me through those scenarios, because that I'll need. And when I'm 70, I'll need more special skills to get me through any potential violent scenario, because at 70, I'm not going to have the same physical capability as I do now and as I would of in my prime, right? This is common sense, right? But women can't handle the common sense aspect of this. Now, but who cares though, right? What does it matter? But, and I'll get into why it matters, because once again, it's back to the point I made before. This does not demonstrate self-development. This does not demonstrate somebody who understands, okay, like the reality of the situation that they're in, and understands, hey, like there's certain things that that I'm going to lose as I age, and I'm okay with that. And I'm going to work on myself and be the best that I can be. That's not that person. The person who shows photos to try with face filters to try to demonstrate that they're more attractive or whatever than when they were younger, or the person who maybe in their mid 20s was drinking and doing drugs and being a complete train wreck, as women have been trained to do. It's like a special training system here in the United States in the West to have women destroy themselves by the time they hit 25. And so if they've been part of that crowd and they show a picture of them looking like trash, and then they show a picture where they lost weight and they look better, okay, yeah, that's great. That's great that you did that. But the reality is you don't look as good when you're 25 because you weren't maximizing your genetic ability. You were destroying yourself, right? So that's not really the same thing. And so we just run into this thing. Well, and that's what it's showing. It's showing from this comment here, women can't accept reality. Well, a lot of women don't accept reality. And this is now I'm going to bring up some tweets here. So Pearl at 6, a lot of people came down on Pearl and were crapping all over her. Now, to be fair, like, she didn't personally attack anybody unless they were attacking her first. That's usually her rule. So when you see like a comment or a tweet or something like that where she's being more attacking, it's usually because that person just went after her, and so that's kind of where that comes from. So keep that in mind, all right, in her defense. She writes in this tweet, though, men used to get more matured women than they dated when they dated, women that are older. So let me reread that. Men used to get more matured women when they dated women that are older. Twitter has proven that is not the case anymore. So she is pointing out the exact problem, okay, which is that there's age-related decline. That's okay. And so what you should get, what women should be doing is doing things when they're younger to develop themselves personally. And so that by the time they're older, they have maturity, they have insight, and they have life skills and relationship skills. And it's funny, the amount of idiocy on Twitter, by the way, is a cesspool Okay. Which is why I'm never serious there. Right. But it's a cesspool of just crap. You know what I mean? Like it brings out, it's not like Elon Musk's fault or anything. It was that way before. It's just the platform, the way it is, it's designed, it brings out like this feeling of people being able to say any kind of trash that they want. Like you could put the nicest post up and then you'll get like 2 or 3 people that'll just trash all over your post, because it just brings out the, you know, psychopathy and divisiveness of people. And they do and say things that they would never do in front of your face for fear of, repercussions. Right. And so that's what Twitter does. But, keeping that in mind. But so she writes that, so it's like, yeah, men used to get more matured women, it's like, but they don't anymore, right? Because what's happening is women are being told this lie, right? A bunch of lies socially. You're beautiful at any age and like all this stuff, which it's like, are you beautiful at any age? Well, yeah, you can be, sure. It's not untrue, but it's also untrue, right? In the sense that age-related decline is real and you only have a certain amount of time for certain things. And where this really shows up is when it comes to starting a family. Do you know the age of 35 is considered a geriatric pregnancy? Okay. And it's funny because I had mentioned this on my Twitter, which was that, I wonder how long it's going to take for them to change the definition medically to appease delusional women. I'll give it a year. I think by next year, maybe around this time or towards the end of next year, the medical world will have altered the wording or altered the definition to make delusional ass women feel better, okay, about the fact that pregnancy complications astronomically rise after the age of 35. Right. And that's the thing. This is what I mean about this delusionment. You have women out there who are thinking that they can wait because people just lie to them. People tell women whatever they want to hear to appease their sensibilities. And for anybody who tells the truth, like right now, I'm telling the truth, I'm sure I'll be shamed by some people. I was very diplomatic on my Twitter page about this. I was not toxic or divisive, and I had people all over it, some people personally attacking me. That's just the way it is, right? And so you'll get attacked when you tell the truth, but you'll get a pat on the back if you lie, right? If you just outright lie to women. And that's what people do, to include in the medical community. You have women out there who think they can save their eggs and wait to get pregnant, start a family. They're 38, 39. I mean, they're delusional, man. They think, I haven't had any kids yet. I'm 37, 38, but that's what I want. You'll ask like women in the dating market, like, well, what do you want? What are you looking for? 37, 38. Well, I still want to have kids and I want to have a family. Like, dude, I don't know if you got the memo, but that ship sailed about 8 years ago for you. You could try, but it's what's called a geriatric pregnancy, a geriatric pregnancy. If you're pregnant at 35, does that mean that you can't get pregnant at 35 and won't have kids? No, you can, but the complications and the potential for infertility and for pregnancy problems and problems with the baby having problems, health problems, mental issues, things like that, lack of development, all kinds of developmental problems that can happen after the age of 35 with a pregnancy. It's not that easy. You know what I mean? And doctors understand this, but they'll get shamed too. They'll get so I mean, just wait. That definition is bound to change. Okay. So this got the attention. So, here's other examples of like this disillusionment, right? So like one, you get these stories, one woman responds with, it depends on the man and it depends on the woman. Life isn't that simple. My mom is 48 and marrying a millionaire oil guy. And Pearl's comment, well, now she's retweeting a story of hope that some 48-year-old lady who's married of some 48-year-old lady, or Jesus, I can't even talk today. Some 48-year-old lady who's marrying a millionaire. These older women are not your friends. They will sell us dreams that will never come true instead of giving us information that will actually help us. Yes, and that is the problem. You have women who have made bad choices in their lives, and instead of facing those choices and having accountability, right, for those decisions, and then seeing the reality for what it is, and then figuring out now what do we do about this, right? Okay, here's the reality. Like woman who's 41 years old and who's back in the dating market, who's had a series of failed relationships and maybe some bad sexual behavior when she's younger. Okay, cool. You're 41 now. Okay, what can you do to increase, your life, to better your life, right? You have to recognize the reality of it. This woman has to recognize, okay, she's 41. She has bad patterns probably and a bad mindset when it comes to communication in relationships, when it comes to partner selection, when it comes to certain things, right? Like she's got to recognize that she's made a series of bad choices to put her where she's at 41. And therefore, not to feel like shameful and just go hang your head in shame and go hang yourself. No, that's not why. Okay. It's not so you can feel guilty about things. Like it's not about guilt. It's not about shame. It's just about accountability, right? Seeing things for how they are so she can go, okay, well, what can I do that's better now? What at my age, what can I do so I can be happy? What should my goals be? What's really important, versus going to the bar on Fridays or Saturdays after drinking a box of wine with their girlfriends and trolling for D, right? Just like she's some young girl with all this time on her hands. It's ridiculous, right? And they set themselves up for failure. So yeah. Another tweet, this is where you get a lot of the traditional conservative. I found it interesting, the amount of conservative, traditional Christian women getting really mad over this, right? It's like, what I don't even know what to say about it. I mean, I was surprised in a weird way. I shouldn't be surprised, but surprised me a bit, but I guess it makes sense, right? Because where are these Christian conservative women coming from? They're all in their 30s, right? They all made bad choices when they were younger, found the church later, most of them, right? And then they're trying to compete and increase their mate value by competing with 21-year-old women. Like it's no. You know what I mean? No, that's not. I'm not going to tryouts this summer to go play for the Lions. Although I probably could. Our team's not that good. But I'm not going to go to the Detroit Lions and show up at my age with my knees after over 40 months of deployment time in combat zones with lots of weight on my body and some of the things I've done to my body. And I'm going to show up at my age and experience of destroying my body through military service. I'm going to show up to the Lions tryouts, see how that goes, right? Because I can be powerful at any age. No, bro. Like, no, I'm not. I don't feel like having my spine and my knees cracked in half by getting hit by some dude who's, half my age and a little bit bigger than me. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, no, that's all right. I understand the reality. Nobody would do that. That's stupid, right? But that's not how these women think. And they design their lives around it. It's crazy. Like how they design their lives around lies and bullshit. But the real problem is not me just slamming on women that do this. The sad part is they're not happy, dude. There's no way they're having relationship success and happiness. The chick that comes on to Pearl's Twitter to bitch and cry, most of these women are not seeing success in their lives and in their relationships. I'd say most of them, right? And so there's things that are missing in their lives. You know what I mean? For them to even think to put a picture of themselves and then another filtered picture beside it to try to lie to the world. Like be one thing if Pearl was like, hey, you Becky, you're older and ugly. And then Becky's like, well, screw you. I'm not old. I'm hot. Look at my picture. That'd be one thing. But like she generally just said this comment, right? And women can't handle it. Like they took it personal. Anyway, another tweet. This one from the traditional conservative, right? Now, I'm a little all over the place today, but whatever. But now, if that's a part of God's plan for my future, I've still got plenty of time. Pearl replies, this is the level of cope from women arguing with me. This woman genuinely thinks at 36 years old, she has plenty of time. Yeah. No, you don't have plenty of time, right? You don't. And that is the biggest lie. And this is why this is such an important thing. This affects you guys out there who are trying to date these women. How many of you guys who are, let's say my age, a little bit older, gone out with a pretty attractive girl who's around your age, right? And you're like, cool, man. Like, I'm gonna go out with this girl. She seems cool, right? And like the amount of coping and ego protection and bitchy behavior and unattractive sort of behavior that she brings to date number one, because she thinks it's a chore for her to try to be pleasant and feminine and fun to be around, right? Like she brings that all because where do you think that's coming from? It's coming from reality not matching where her ego is. You know what I mean? Where she feels that there's an injustice somehow in the relationship market because she's not having better outcomes. Instead of recognizing that her outcomes are product of her behaviors and the things that she's done, and the way that she's conducted herself. And instead of thinking, I need to show up and, be cool, be like, not just like put on this face, but like try to make myself a better person. So when I show up to dates, I'm fun to be around, like, and cool and relaxed. And I have, I'm somebody who's a giver, tries to make somebody feel good. Like, those sorts of things. Like, no, like those things are absent. These are relationship skills. They take conditioning, they take effort, and they don't happen by accident. You know what I mean? And if you're sitting here coping and expecting, well, God's going to just bring you a magical man while you act like you have time and you act like you should be treated like a 21-year-old. It just doesn't work, and so important so anyway, let me go into my Twitter. Actually, this is a good little part. If you like this stuff, by the way, throw a nice little like in there. I appreciate that. And actually, I am, as far as if you want to know how to beat the dating algorithms, we'll say, not just on the internet, but in life, right? The key is making yourself better. The key is accountability. The key is learning also as a man, seduction skills, sexual skills, okay, relationship skills, and bettering your mindset. And if you're interested in doing that, you should consider my year-long program. In fact, I will play that commercial. Your success with women literally boils down to one thing. When you have this one thing, all of your troubles disappear and you start having amazing experiences that most men can only dream of. And that's the good news. But the bad news is, if you don't have it, nothing else will work. All of the money, good looks, advice on the internet, and all the best pickup and game skills out there will fail without you mastering this one thing. And that one thing is frame. Develop the skills in establishing and keeping frame, and everything else follows. That is the big secret. And the good news is, I can teach you all you need to know about it. The answers to ending your pain and suffering and to start living an amazing life with women is just one click away. After this video, click on the link in the description to schedule a free consult to see if you are a good fit. And then you and I could work together on finally getting you to start living the life with women that most men can only dream of. All right. So that link is in the description, and that's the key. That's the way out of this stuff, right? Is to learn and develop the skills. And the thing with women too, and I've had a lot of female clients too. I mean, I mainly consult work with men. I've had women who've come to me for help, and I've had women come to me of all ages, right? And the ones who've come to me who were over the age of 35, talking women in their 40s, 50s even, they weren't, by the time they came to me, they weren't ignoring age related decline. Okay. They understood that reality. And the key was to not have a mindset of shame or guilt over that, or to think that they're less of a woman. See, part of the problem here is that women put impossible standards on other women, right? Everyone blames the men for this, but it really isn't the men that are doing it. It's women who are competing with each other that put these standards on each other, right? A woman is supposed to be at, let's say, age 35, a perfect mother, as beautiful as a 21-year-old girl, right? And youthful and sexy as a 21-year-old, in impeccable shape. And she's supposed to have a career on top of it where she's doing better than all the men, right? And she's supposed to be smarter than all the men, in some cases even physically stronger and more capable. I mean, the standards that are out there as a narrative is like women can do anything a man can do, and they have to do everything a woman should be doing, and that should be able to do everything at any age. That is the mythology. That is the part that nobody's talking about. And that is extremely problematic. It creates a situation of divisiveness that we see here. This entire blow up is based on that narrative. All Pearl is doing is pointing out truths, and women can't handle the truth because they've been told that if they're not all these things, that they're less of a woman, that they're trash, they're not valuable, and that's just not true. And that's not fair to women. You know what I mean? And it's not guys that are doing that. It's women that are doing that to themselves. And when they do that to themselves, they create these impossible standards for themselves. And then they place those impossible standards on potential men in their lives. And they're just not happy. They're not happy to be around. They're not happy to date. And that's why guys like me end up with girls in their 20s a lot of times. It's not like my girlfriend is, 20 years younger than me. Okay. But it's not like I targeted a girl who was younger than me. It was in the last 10 years, my series of relationships have all been girls in their mid 20s. Why do you think that is? Well, they're attractive, but it's not that I didn't look at or try it with women who are in their 30s or closer to my age. It was that those women tended to be a lot less fun to be around. and it's on top of some age related decline, even though they were very beautiful, they brought all kinds of baggage to the table. That baggage is happening because of these impossible standards that they're putting on themselves. And then they ego protect and cap. If you even say the truth, right? That, you know what? Women start declining in beauty naturally, genetically after about their early to mid 20s. That's reality of what happens. So that means, what does that imply? That means like a woman needs to really pay attention, let's say when she's 30. Not even that. I mean, better to start as early as possible, but especially like when she's 30, what does she need to be conscious of? Her diet, her skincare, her exercise routine, and how she takes care of herself, right? Like, these are important things. There's nothing wrong with having that accountability. Showing up and being, overweight and not taking care of yourself and then trying to get surgery or whatever to try to back it up. Like, these are not healthy moves for a girl. And then these girls show up with all their unhealthy baggage and they bring it to the dating market. A guy like myself who has a lot of things going for me, I'm not picking that girl. Like, I'll be by myself. I'll hold off for a better girl. She's not making it past casual with me. Right. And there are other guys who have a lot of value out there and they think the same way. And that's the issue. But of course, there's unfortunately a lot less women to choose for guys, and guys feel like they have to put up with this shit. Well, I'm telling you, you don't. If you develop the skills, of course, and you develop yourself, you don't, you know. Um, my man Juan has a question. Thank you for the super, sir. Yeah, we'll take a quick break with this. This is turning into a longer show than I expected. What's the max age you'd say a guy could take a woman for starting a family from meeting, gaining, vetting, LTR, wife, and mother? Well, I mean, I would say its max age has to be under 35. You know, I mean, it just really, I would say the optimal age. Now, understand this. When I give this advice, this is general advice. Like, women are individuals, just like guys are individuals, right? So, like, when we get down to individual preferences and behaviors and characteristics, those are a lot more unpredictable. When I work with like a client, I get into their individual circumstance. All right. It's not general advice. We get into what their circumstance is. When we look at an individual woman, we're looking at what her circumstances and what her personal makeup is. And then we look and make decisions. Right. So and there are a lot of exceptions to rules, so to speak, when you start doing that. So you guys got to understand general advice. Like, if I'm looking at 1,000,000 people, I can predict trends of behavior based on like series of data points much easier than I can predict the pattern of behavior for one person, right? Because that one person is going to have a whole bunch of variables about them that could make them make the statistically more probable choices, or can make them make very different choices, right? But if I'm looking at 1,000,000 people and I'm looking at trends, not just one person, I can make these determinations with a lot more predictability. Okay. So for studies purposes and trends and probabilities, we can come up with those things when we look at large test samples. When we're dealing with one person or one couple, that is much harder to predict. And so we have to take the data and what we know and what we have and apply it to the individual circumstances. And that, for you sitting at home watching me, that's what you have to do to find your own happiness. Okay. Don't jump on a trend, right? To try to figure out your situation. All right. That's not really the way it goes, but don't deny the reality either, though, that the trends are demonstrating. Now, Juan asks this question here, which is, what's the optimal age for starting a family? Or if you're going to meet a girl, when should you start a family? Well, let's think about it. We got to work backwards from 35, being that 35 is the age of a geriatric pregnancy. Doesn't mean that a girl can't get pregnant older than 35, as I mentioned before. If I don't keep making these caveats, like, women will cry across the land. So I have to keep doing that. But, and then guys who simp for those women will, show up in my comment section. But pregnancy complications and health complications for the mother as well as the baby, those increase astronomically after the age of 35. So if you're looking at an optimal age, you got to work backwards from 35. All right. That's just how it goes. And so that means that, okay, are you going to have kids like on the first date? If you didn't wrap up, you might. If you didn't, have a plan B, okay, yeah, a lot of things can happen. But assuming you're going to do it the right way, you're going to have a relationship with this person. Well, what does that mean? Okay, that means you're going to let a relationship develop. You're going to let it develop past the honeymoon phase and get into sort of the challenge phase of a relationship and see if it survives, the part where she sees you for who you really are and all of your faults as well as your good qualities versus what, has been presented to her during the first few months, right? So how long does that take to vet through a relationship to make sure that it's a good relationship before you start, and Sean Smith, psychologist, tactical guide for women, whatever, not for women, for selecting, I don't know, tactical guide, damn it. Anyway, I like that guy and his book's great. I'm just brain farting on air right now of his title. But that's his tactical guide book, and actually his other books are excellent. And he gives a timeline for that. My prescription's a little bit, similar. I think safe bet is like 2 years. So I think his is to wait a year after the honeymoon phase, which is puts you at about the 2-year mark. I think though for guys, because guys have difficulty in determining when the honeymoon phase ends, right? And when like this sort of challenge phase of the relationship begins, guys have a hard time. Their game skills are not highly developed and their awareness skills aren't developed. They're not going to necessarily know. So to be safe, you give it 2 years, right? So figure in 2 years before you start trying to have kids. That means sometime after the year mark, maybe you guys are cohabitating. Now, some guys are going to jump on the internet. Don't cohabitate with a woman. Okay, listen, man, we're talking about raising families here. Okay, so cohabitation is how you do it. Optimally, right? So that being said, yeah, you're going to want to cohabitate. You're going to want to live with that person for a period of time. Make sure, and make sure things are really good and stable and set yourself up for success. So when you have that kid, she has the best opportunity for success in that pregnancy and all that, right? And that you guys can develop your family the way that you want. So if that's important to you, well, you can't start that at 35 with a woman. That's not going to work. You see what I mean? If you meet a girl who's 35 and she's like, well, I want kids someday. Like, okay, by the time you guys can even think about that shit, if she even makes it this far, she's going to be 37, right? And this is why Kevin Samuels was so popular, because he would get these women on who are absolutely delusional. And he would say, no, you can't start a family at 37 or whatever. No, high value man doesn't want you and your 2 kids that you've had with another guy. Like, like he says things that are true, right? He got real popular because women freak out over it. At any rate, so if you're a dude, what age is that going to be? I mean, so minimally, it's going to be 32, 33. Give yourself a little breathing room to start trying to have kids at least before the age of 35, 32. 32 would be like your max age, right? Before, for picking a girl optimally for a family. Now, I understand that life doesn't always work out that way. Maybe you meet the coolest chick on earth and she is 36 years old or 37, right? And you are in love with this girl and she loves you and she is awesome. She's one of the ones, by the way, ladies who are listening, pay attention to this little vignette here, okay? She's one of the ones who didn't trash herself all throughout her 20s and then take zero accountability for it later. You meet a 37-year-old who's, worked on herself consistently for a while, all right? And by the time she's 37, she brings a lot of qualities to the table and it makes her hard to walk away from, right? Because she's cool. It makes, as a man, your feelings and emotions can get invested in that woman a lot easier when she's like a perfect woman, and she's pretty, she's hot. You can throw a picture of you and her on your Facebook and not be embarrassed or something about it. Like, I mean, she's been taking care of herself, right? Like you meet that chick, she's 37, you still want a family, right? Yeah. Okay. But now you have to face this reality. I'm not saying dump her and find a 32-year-old. That's Twitter shit. That's rage bait and bullshit bait on the YouTube. This is Elevate, not rage bait. All right. This show's called Elevate. We're going to have elevated discussions. So you meet that girl. She's 37 years old and she's perfect. Well, it's not going to do her any good or you any good to pretend like you're not going to have any complications with pregnancies, right? So what do you do about that? Well, look at options. Adoption, right? Look at surrogacy or adoption or different things that you could do to develop a family. If it must be your sperm, right, that makes the baby, you can look into the pregnancy, but you're going to want to now talk to doctors. You're going to want to really closely monitor that situation. You're not in an optimal situation. You're going to do what you can. But then you also have to set your expectations and your standards. Both you and her need to understand that you could do everything and she might not be able to get pregnant. And that has to be okay with you. And it has to be okay with her. You can't 3 years into this relationship with this 37-year-old decide that you don't like her anymore and you resent her and you blah, blah, and you regret because you wanted kids. You can't do that as a man. That's not fair to her. And she can't do that to herself because that's not being fair to herself, right? But if she's pretending that she is just as hot at 37 as she was when she was 25, and showing pictures of herself and commenting on Pearl stuff, how dare she say such a thing? Look how hot I am. Look how I got all of the prospects in the world. Maybe God will provide me a baby. If that's her, how disappointed and how destroyed mentally, emotionally is she going to be when that baby doesn't come? Because at 37, you know what I mean? It just isn't going to happen for her body and for whatever, right? That sucks, dude. That sucks. Why would you wish that on a girl? Right? I don't wish that on a girl, which is why I think it's important that you tell the truth. All right. Changing language and trying to be nice to save someone's feelings doesn't save their feelings. It causes them a great amount of destruction later when the reality that they're not facing ends up hitting them directly in the face. Right. So to answer your question, 32 is that if you're trying to plan it out like that, you should be looking at girls between 25 and 32. And actually, for LTR prospects right now, to increase your probabilities until you're probably about 50 fucking years old, okay? Provided that you make yourself attractive, 25 to 30 is optimal LTR age. Why do I say that? Because they're mature enough to have figured things out and to know where they're going, whereas maybe a 21, 22-year-old has no idea. So when you get with a 21-year-old, let's say, which I know about that too, as an older person, what happens is they don't care and they don't really know what they're doing yet. And they're still developing a lot, like into their adulthood, right? Like we're not in tribal times where chicks died of like their fourth pregnancy by 28, or something. We're in modern 2023 where women are living to 85, 90 years old, right? And our expectations for long-term relationships are a lot more than they ever were. Okay. So with those expectations, a girl at 21, she's still figuring herself out. She's still developing mentally, emotionally, and trying to figure out what her life wants to look like. Now, a good 21-year-old chick hopefully has a good father, hopefully has good family values, whether it's from their church or their religion or from their social circles, and she's not destroying her body and destroying her mind at 21. Hopefully she is pursuing endeavors that would make her better, as a person, so that by the time she is 24, 25, 26, and starts to say, you know what, I really need to think about what my future's like and really figure some things out, she's a good prospect, right, for a relationship. But between 25 and 30, she usually hasn't screwed up her life completely. And a lot do. But, a lot of women, they don't have the baggage, right? A 35, 37-year-old woman, again, there's individual 35, 37-year-old women that are great. So I'm not slamming on you, but we're talking statistically, most of them have a lot of baggage, right? So like even just for LTR success, 25 to 30, if you're trying to fish in the pond that's going to give you the most catches, all right, of what you're looking for LTR material, it's really, I'd say 25 to 30, maybe 31, 32. That's okay. Now, again, you can meet a 42-year-old and she's amazing. You found that unicorn. What am I going to sit here and tell you not to have a long-term relationship with her? Oh, bro, she's 42. Like, no, of course not. Go with it. If you're, in your 40s, you meet a hot 42-year-old who has her shit together, fucking ride off into the sunset, man. You know what I mean? Nice job. Like invite me to your fucking dinner party or whatever you're going to throw when you guys move in together. Like it's fine. Okay. So, and again, women who are paying attention, that's what you do. If you're 42 and single, you want to be that woman. You want to be the unicorn woman. And guess what? It ain't hard to be the unicorn woman today because so many women suck. Right. And guys, same with you. It's not hard for you to be the okay, top tier man. The bar is real low today because people behave like shit. Ghost Cat, thank you for the $10 Superman. I appreciate it. If Ghost Cat is a man or a woman, I don't know. I don't know what a Ghost Cat is. I'm sorry. Don't be mad at me. Don't cancel me. But thank you though for the super. I do appreciate it. So yeah. That's what was I gonna do? I was gonna read something. Oh my god, 50 minutes. This is supposed to be a short show format. And then like Twitter sucks because like I'll have it. Oh wait, here it is. I found it. Okay, so I end up saying something, and I get Lauren Sutherland's attention. All right, which Lauren Sutherland, she did that Red Pill movie. I think if I'm wrong in any of this shit, please correct me because I don't pay attention to what people do. I have nothing against Lauren Sutherland. All right. Just FYI, okay, but I do have some counter arguments for her, right? Because her argument against Pearl, like they were going back and forth a lot, and her thing was like, it's not her big thing right now is like spiritual development, or it doesn't have spirit. So her tweet was, the who is hotter at what age discourse is utterly devoid of any spiritual value. And so here's the thing. I have a difficulty with that kind of argument that's more now floating in the traditional conservative side of things. My difficulty is this, like, what's spiritual mean? What is spiritual value? Like, is it your horoscope value? Is your tarot card reading value? Right? I met somebody who did tarot cards. She had a really interesting take on how she did it. I was like super interested in it because of just what goes into it. Not that I think there's necessarily a spiritual component to it, but anyway, some person might mean, maybe that girl that I met with the tarot card thing, maybe she's talking about tarot cards. That's her spiritual value. What do we mean by spiritual value? You see, that's what we call a container word. And so people like to come up with these charged container words that don't actually mean anything. And they base their arguments about that, around that. Now, she may have a meaning or definition, but it's like, I would love to know what that is, quite frankly. But the problem with using that is, and this is why I don't use the word love a lot, although I use it sometimes, but I don't use the word love all the time, even though I talk about, love relationships. Why am I not just vomiting the word love all the time? Well, because there are different definitions and concepts of love. It's not a universal thing. It ends up becoming a container word, right? And so the word spiritual is a container word. It's kind of, you may think, you may have your definition, but what is that may mean something different to somebody else. And so what does spiritual value mean? Right. Like, but anyways, she's saying who's hotter at what age, or like this whole discussion is devoid of spiritual value. That was her argument. Okay. So read it. As also a pro tip, the cool thing about aging is if you've taken care of your mind, the way you look matters less and less each year. I do agree with that statement from her. That's the point I'm making as well, is that if you are working on yourself, you offset your age-related decline. But that's exactly what we need to be talking about. That's not devoid of spiritual value. That's a discussion we need to be having, because women are having these impossible standards that they're putting on themselves, right? In this capping and coping that they're doing to themselves, that's hindering their mental and emotional development, the very thing that would make them have better relationships and better success. And so that's the problem. My comments previously to something that she had said was, so we can't tell the truth that a woman tends to look her best in her 20s because that lacks spiritual value. Makes sense. Bullshit each other as long as you do it spiritually. I'll go back to humming This Little Light of Mine while I conduct a Ponzi scheme. All right. so I'm a dick on Twitter a little bit, but I mean, and I was less, but so someone had, well, why does this matter? So again, it matters because of the cognitive dissonance, right? When women demand being lied to, the results is they try to act like they're 21 when they're 40 and divorced, rather than recognizing the value that they could be bringing with their experiences. All right. So like that is the problem, right? And so let's see, there were more things said, and I'm going to try to find them. That's the only problem with these sorts of threads and things, But one thing that said, because some says, well, it seems like it's mean, to talk about the reality. And again, it's like the thing that I noticed about this, I wouldn't have noticed or cared about Pearl's tweet at all. I don't notice much, right? Because I don't play on the internet. I actually go outside and touch grass, which I recommend you guys do too. I noticed it because of the amount of cognitive dissonance, the amount of capping, the amount of coping, right? The amount of, not wanting to recognize the truth or shame others for talking about it. That was what alluded to me that we have a serious problem here. I mean, I knew that before, but that's what illustrated, and it can illustrate that to all of you. You know, it's like they're not embracing themselves when that's the issue, you know. Um, don't know if I can find more of my stuff because I might have to be digging through. I should have probably screenshotted more things because there were a lot of good comments and stuff going back and forth, right? You guys can go, if you have a Twitter, you should be following me for these things when they come up. Um, but yeah, I mean, Lauren Southern made some good points, which was like, well, it's not productive to shame women, just for things they can't change. And I fully agree with that. And if you notice, I'm not doing that here in this elevated discussion, right? What I'm pointing to is that a main problem in relationships today, a big problem, is the lack of accountability. And that's for men and women. Men lack accountability in other areas, not usually their beauty. Okay. Not usually, but men have accountability issues too. Right. And women have accountability issues. And it's this avoidance of shame and guilt and feeling bad about yourself. Look, when people criticize me, I take a look at those criticisms for what they are, and I use that to elevate myself, to make myself better. Even if this criticisms are bullshit coming from a shitty place. You know what I mean? When people say I'm unattractive, that inspires me to make myself more attractive, and not for them, but just for myself, right? Because what makes me more attractive ultimately makes me a better person too. Case in point, I gave alcohol up. It was a decision I made. Now, I say that loosely because I don't want, if I ever meet you, see you, and I have a cocktail with you, I don't want it to be like, oh my God, he broke his sobriety. Like, I didn't give it up because I have an alcohol problem or that there's a problem, like a serious problem I've had. I could have a drink in the future. It's not a big deal. Okay. But I had a pattern of drinking, casual drinking, like anybody does. Most people do. What I noticed in a previous relationship was that through a lot of drinking with her, because she was a big drinker, big partier, and I enjoyed my time, especially coming back from Afghanistan and enjoying that, right? What I noticed is a couple of things. I noticed one thing, our relationship communication and a lot of issues that we may have had became complicated with alcohol. Whenever we got into like fights or something that weren't good, where I behaved in a way that I'm not like happy with, right? Too much alcohol was involved. You know what I mean? And so people are just not thinking. They're not, when alcohol takes your brain over, it's not good. So that was one thing. For keeping good relationship frame and some of those things, you really got to watch your alcohol and your partying levels. But another thing too is related to the age related thing, right? At my age, I'm on a genetic decline, which means that everything I do, I can improve myself a bit, but really age is going to catch up with me. And it does that slowly every day. Whereas in my early 30s, that wasn't really the case, right? And so let's say 32, 33-year-old me, I could drink pretty frequently and I would have the same feeling the next day as I do today, but I would have a lot less of a consequence in terms of age related decline, right? Whereas now at my age, I noticed after that year of drinking, I just had things going on with me that you could attribute to aging, more wrinkles, a little bit of hair thinning, like stuff that guys get as they get older. I never had that issue. All of a sudden, it was like I come back from no alcohol in a combat zone for almost a year to now all of a sudden a year later having issues, not recovering from workouts and injuries as easily, a little bit of weight gain, like all these things. Didn't have to worry about it when I was 30. Now in my mid 40s, those are things that happen. So what do? I give up alcohol. It's more important for me to keep and maintain my appearance and my physical health and the things that I enjoy about myself and physical health than to drink. And there's other reasons to not do it too. And so I just don't do that like I used to, right? It's a decision I made based on accountability. Okay. I could have sat there and said, I'm fine. I can handle my liquor, right? And done all the capping, all the coping that dudes do in their 40s and 50s around alcohol, right? And then look more and more like the grizzled vet that I'm becoming faster, and I'd be less attractive to, my sexual partners in life, right? Like what? And less attracted to myself, and all that stuff. And then I just be bullshitting myself. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. By facing the reality, that, hey, I'm not 30 years old anymore. I'm not 25 years old anymore. If I drink this frequently into this level, it's going to affect my body differently. Facing that reality has done wonders to help me with my own accountability and to make myself better. That's a personal story. Okay. A woman who's 35 facing the reality of things like age-related decline and not being embarrassed about that. All right. That is going to help her to take accountability for her lifestyle choices, to take accountability for how she shows up in her relationships, to how she sets up her goals. And the girl who's showing the photos of before and after with face filters and Botox to try to deny reality, that girl is not demonstrating that accountability. That girl is not, maybe she's just a fine human being. I don't know. But that action isn't demonstrating somebody who's going to be a good, healthy partner to somebody in their mid 30s, mid 40s, whatever, right? They're representing somebody that I would not go on a second date with. And that would make me end up with somebody in her 20s. And other guys and other options, guys who have options, guys who can have their choice, right? They are going to select somebody else. And so those women can cry that there's no good men out there. But the reality is what they're doing and how they're showing up is ruining their chances. And some of you guys who feel like you don't have the options because these are the types of women you keep going out with, and you keep having to ask yourself, shit, do I have to put up with this? Do I have to put up with a lot of this behavior? Right? Why can't I have somebody who's emotionally developed, who's mature, who's mentally developed, who's a good partner, who's feminine, who shows up and wants to make me feel good, in the same way I would want to make her feel good, right? Well, a different way because it's men and women, right? So how come that's not the converse, how come that's not happening more? Where are all those women, right? They're not there because they're doing this stuff. They're being lied to. And so that's why this is an important thing. And so for you guys, some actionable stuff, we'll close with this, right? We'll close with this is accountability. All right. It boils down to accountability. If you meet a woman who is able to have accountability and she speaks and conducts herself in a manner that demonstrates that she has accountability in herself and her life, that is worth some gold. That is a very, very green flag. Okay. And that is somebody that might be a good long-term prospect for you. These women who don't have that accountability, who have a lot of cognitive dissonance, who get mad and angry and shitty and attacking to other people when things get pointed out that they don't like, you know what I mean? Those types of unpleasant people, they're probably not going to be good, right? For long-term success. And, you guys with scarcity, unfortunately, you've been accepting that for too long. So that's why I work with you for a year. I keep circling back to that. I got a few slots. If you guys are interested, click the link in the description, right? And if you like this content, by the way, there's, besides getting into year-long programming and paying the big bucks, there's free access to more actionable information. You should just be getting on my newsletter, my list. Okay. There's more free stuff to help you navigate this dating market and to help you with your mindset and your own personal development with the way things are today. Thanks again, guys. Till next time.